C-111. Tang Yuyu immediately smiled. Then it's fine, I'll take her upstairs to play with Big Brother. Only then did Uncle Yuan nod his head and go do something else. Your father still hasn't come back yet. Let Mummy play with you for a while, Tang Yuyu said with a gentle smile as before. Little Rui. Tang Yuyu pushed the door and entered. The little fellow was shocked and quickly stood up. Mummy, you're back. Let me ask you, did something happen to your sister when she was at school today? Tang Yuyu was clever. She couldn't just directly call Jik Xiao Han and ask him, but ask his son. He definitely knew about it. No, nothing happened. Tang Xiaorui was instantly a little flustered, and even stuttered when he spoke. Tang Yuyu narrowed his eyes, stared into his eyes and asked sternly, raise your head, look into my eyes and answer. Do you have it or not? Tang Xiaorui could only raise his head and look his mother in the eye. Mummy, I'm not too sure. You really don't know? Tang Yuyu sighed. He didn't even know what had happened to his son and what had happened to his sister. Yeah, I really don't know. Tang Xiaorui didn't dare to speak carelessly. Of course, it was to protect his little sister. Looking at his son's young appearance, Tang Yuyu was even more certain that something happened to his daughter at school. At this moment, from the entrance of the main hall, a bunch of lights came in. From afar, the driver saw a small figure sitting on the steps of the main hall. Young master, young miss is sitting at the entrance, the driver quickly reminded him. The slightly tired gaze of the man sitting in the back seat was slightly lifted. He sat up and looked forward. Stop, turn off the lights. Jik Xiao Han saw that the little girl was curled up and was sitting there. His heart trembled slightly as he quickly ordered the driver. The driver quickly stopped the car and turned off the headlights. Jik Xiao Han quickly opened the car door, walked out with his tall and big body, and quickly walked towards the little fellow. Tang Xiaonei was like a pitiful worm. Her small body shrank into a ball as she sat there in a daze. It was unknown whether she had fallen asleep or not, but her small body slightly swayed a few times. Jik Xiao Han had never seen his daughter so sad before. He walked a few steps to the front of the little guy and squatted down. Xiaonei, why are you sitting at the door alone? Is your mummy back? When Tang Xiaonei Yiting heard his father's voice, she immediately raised her head, and a look of delight instantly appeared in her large watery eyes. Daddy, you're finally back. Xiaonei has been waiting for you for a long time. Wait for me? Jik Xiao Han was slightly startled. He never thought that the little fellow sitting here would actually be waiting for him. Yeah, I just wanted to see Daddy faster, so I sat here and waited for you. Tang Xiaonei was still grinning from ear to ear. Jik Xiao Han's heart was greatly shaken. It had been 4 years since he built this villa, but he had never returned home like today. After working hard for a day, someone had told him that they had been waiting for him to return. Even someone like Jik Xiao Han, who had never been moved by others, was greatly affected at this moment. He carried his daughter in his arms and stroked her little head. He hugged her tightly and scolded her softly. You little fool, just wait for Daddy to come home. Don't sit on the floor anymore. Just wait in the living room. Remember that? But I want to see Daddy soon. Tang Xiaonei blinked his eyes, completely unaware how much pain he had felt sitting on the floor. All right, I promise you. After I finish my work, I will return home as soon as possible. Jik Xiao Han comforted him gently. Yes, Daddy, Mummy is back. You have to keep it a secret for me. Just now, Tang Xiaonei was hiding in front of her father in the mummy, but she had let her guard down. Jik Xiao Han nodded his head. Don't worry, I won't say anything to her. Just as Jik Xiao Han finished speaking, a slender and beautiful figure walked out from the door. The moment Tang Yuyu came out, she had coincidentally heard the last words Jik Xiao Han said. His beautiful big eyes slightly narrowed, and walked in front of the father and daughter pair, and asked, what did you say just now that you're not going to tell me? What happened to his daughter at school today? I heard you brought her back around 3. Jik Xiao Han frowned. He carried his daughter and walked towards the living room, pretending to not hear what Tang Yuyu said. Tang Yuyu did not expect to be ignored so much by this man, causing her to instantly become angry. What were these people trying to hide from her? What was going on? Was his daughter hurt? Was he being bullied? Tang Yu turned around quickly, and then, she extended her hand out, blocking Jixiao Han's path. If you don't explain yourself, I won't let you in. Jixiao Han frowned. You poured wine all over my body at noon today. I don't care about it anymore. Don't ask why now. Is it okay? No, Xiao Nei is my daughter, but you haven't even entered her school. If you really care about what happened to her, shouldn't you first examine whether or not you're a qualified mother? Jixiao Han's tone carried a bit of ridicule. Tang Yu was stunned. Tang Xiao Nei was curled up in her father's embrace. Seeing that the two of them were arguing about her, she immediately turned pale white. I'm taking my daughter out for a trip. Stay at home and accompany your son. After Jixiao Han finished speaking, he carried his daughter and walked out. When Tang Yu heard that he was actually going to bring his daughter away on his own, she became even more curious and quickly blocked his path. Jixiao Han, explain everything clearly before leaving. Where are you bringing your daughter to? Is she hurt? C-112. Daddy only likes me. Jixiao Han glanced at the little fellow in his embrace. The little fellow's body was stretched tight, and it was obvious that it was afraid because it had gotten into trouble. She's not hurt, she's fine. After Jixiao Han finished speaking, he immediately went around Tang Yu and headed towards the car. Jixiao Han looked at his daughter's perky little mouth and gently smiled. All right, tonight, I'll only take Xiao Nei to eat, and introduce the two uncles to you, okay? All right. When the little guy heard that he would be able to get to know his uncle, he immediately grew even happier. Before we eat, we have to apologize to the kid you bit. Jixiao Han had already told the school to tell them the address of their children's home, so Jixiao Han prepared to personally bring his daughter here to apologize. Oh! The moment the little fellow heard that he was going to apologize, its small face immediately fell. When we get to school, can you just call me uncle and not dad? Why? Because daddy doesn't want others to know that you are my daughter? But I'm your daughter, you're my dad's, aren't you? Facing such a simple and honest little fellow, Jixiao Han laughed bitterly. Daddy has a reason for doing this. How about you promise daddy this once? All right, I want some ice cream for dinner. All right. Only then did Jixiao Han agree a condition with his daughter. The other party's family was quite wealthy. The moment they opened the door, they saw a handsome young man holding a little girl in his hand. Is this Li's home? Jixiao Han asked politely in a low voice. Yes, you are. The old lady who opened the door was filled with curiosity. Mom, who is it? A young man suddenly walked over. He was also the head of a certain company, also known as Li's father. When he saw the man standing at the door, he was shocked. Isn't this Quarterly? The other side found it hard to believe. The business war god, who could only see a few times from afar before, was now standing in front of his door. Jixiao Han immediately smiled. Are you Li Bupang's parents? Today, my niece bit your son at school. It's nothing, it's just a small wound, it's not really a serious injury. Quarterly doesn't need to personally come and apologize. It's true. The other party's attitude was extremely polite. Even if your injuries are serious, a child must learn to respect others. Xiao Nei quickly apologized to uncle, and guarantee that you won't bully little friends again. Jixiao Han lowered his head and said to his daughter. Tang Xiao Nei immediately bent her small body, and said loudly with full sincerity, sorry uncle, I promise I will never bully your Li bastard again. Father Li was overwhelmed by the favor. He quickly said, Quarterly, you really did set a good example for your child by coming here to apologize. My family's Li Bupang is also in the wrong. He is too naughty. When we get back, I will teach him a lesson. Bring your niece in for a cup of tea. Have you eaten yet? There's no need for that. I'll be making a trip over then. I'll be taking my leave first. After Jixiao Han finished speaking, he grabbed his daughter's small hand and planned to leave. Goodbye uncle. Tang Xiao Nei waved politely towards her, and followed her father. Jixiao Han brought his daughter back to the car, then called his two friends and invited them to dinner together. Coincidentally, both of them had time. 3 people have a private restaurant that often meets for meals, and this restaurant usually only accepts reservations. However, Jixi Han's 3 distinguished guests could come and go at any time. Inside the private box, Mu Shiyi was already the first to arrive. His eyes were wide open as he looked at the little guy hiding behind Jixi Han. It was really very small. When he stood up, he was only able to reach half the height of Jixi Han's long legs. Xiao Nei, quickly call the Uncle Yi. Jixi Han immediately reminded her daughter in a gentle tone. Mu Shiyi tried his best to make his expression as gentle as water, but when he smiled like this, he still gave off the vibe of a yuppie. Uncle Yi, a childish voice rang out. Mu Shiyi stared at the little fellow for a while and sighed. Xiao Han, your daughter is already this old. I am truly envious. Jixi Han pulled out a chair and carried the little guy over. Then, he sat down on a chair to the side with a satisfied smile on his handsome face. If you're jealous, then go and find a girlfriend to get married to. Don't be single again. When Mu Shiyi heard about marriage, he immediately felt some fear. I don't want it. What I fear the most is trouble. Women are so troublesome. Tang Xiaonei propped up her chin and listened to his father speak to her uncle seriously, but he couldn't find anything. She didn't understand. Daddy, I want ice cream. Tang Xiaonei felt that this delicacy was the most attractive. Thus, she immediately extended her little hand to push her father's arm, wanting to attract his attention. Okay, Daddy will ask them to make you a copy. Jixi Han had promised his daughter before in the car. Even though he didn't really want her to eat such a cold food, he couldn't possibly not keep his promise. It seemed that he absolutely could not let her mention ice cream again when he was negotiating with the little guy in the future. He could change toys or something. After Jixi Han left, Mu Shiyi took the opportunity to tease Tang Xiaonei, and said with a smile, "Little guy, what's your name? Don't you have a brother? Why did your dad bring you here alone?" Tang Xiaonei was still a little shy facing strangers. Her 2 little fingers were intertwined as she looked at Mu Shiyi with her big black eyes and answered with her head lowered, "Daddy likes me the most. Of course it's only taking me out to eat." See 113. Oh, so that's the case. You haven't told me your name yet. Xiaonei, Tang Xiaonei. Mu Shiyi was surprised, then he suppressed his laughter, and continued to ask with a serious face, "Why is it not good?" "I like it. My father promised me, he will only love my mummy." Tang Xiaonei lowered her head and replied in an extremely serious manner. She completely didn't know that she had tricked him by saying all this. Mu Shiyi was already unable to hold back his urge to burst into laughter. He really wanted to kiss this little fellow. When Jixi Han pushed the door and entered, he saw that half of Mu Shiyi's body was sprawled on the table, as if he was chatting with the little fellow opposite him. At this moment, his face full of smiles, instantly gave Jixi Han a very bad feeling. "What are you doing? I'm warning you, don't bully my daughter because she's young." Jixi Han instantly turned into a female protective demon, vigilantly staring at the Mu Shiyi who had lost control and was laughing out loud. Mu Shiyi trembled from the man's warning, and quickly returned to his seat in all seriousness. "Xiao Han, your daughter is too cute. She was even chatting with me just now. My niece is so silly. I asked her everything but she ignored me. I didn't expect your daughter to be so good at chatting. Her genes are so good. Her eyes should be like her mother's. She's so beautiful." Mu Shiyi immediately started to praise the little guy, and at the same time praise her. Jixi Han's handsome face immediately tensed up, and his dangerous tone sounded out, "What did you ask her about?" "It's nothing. I was just asking her for her name and your family relationship." Mu Shiyi, when did you become so gossipy? Jixi Han was instantly displeased. He actually dared to ask his daughter these questions when he was about to leave. Mu Shiyi immediately showed concern. "I'm not gossiping, I'm concerned about you." "You don't have to care about these things," Jixi Han said in an annoyed tone. Mu Shiyi continued to snicker, and then, he said in all seriousness, "Xiao Han, your daughter is so beautiful. Her mummy must also be very beautiful. When can you bring her out for us to meet?" "I won't." Jixi Han rejected him with a single sentence. "Why? Don't be so stingy, just bring it out to eat with us. make friends or something. Tang Xiaonai blinked her large black eyes, then said, my mummy will not come out to eat with father. Mu Shiyi was startled, and Jig Xiaohan also stiffened slightly. Why, Xiaonai? Mu Shiyi immediately asked curiously. Tang Xiaonai continued, because my mummy does not like to stay with father. They will start quarreling in a few minutes. Jig Xiaohan suddenly had the urge to pat his forehead. Daughter, you've told me all sorts of truths, can you still leave me with a sense of mysteriousness? Mu Shiyi did not expect the small family to dig up such a big piece of news, and immediately smiled merrily at Jig Xiaohan, who had a rigid face. Mummy, really dares to argue with you? How is this possible? Didn't all women become infatuated with you in an instant? Could it be that her mummy has really not calling? When this matter was mentioned, Jig Xiaohan was extremely annoyed. Honestly speaking, he had never seen any woman who would turn a blind eye to him like Tang Yuyu. But in fact, that was it. The door was pushed open at this moment. Liu Hining walked in, and the moment he entered, he saw Tang Xiaonai, who was sitting upright on her seat, and her eyes immediately lit up with disbelief. Yo, there's a small guest today. Xiaohan, you've brought your daughter here. Jig Xiaohan pointed at Liu Hining, who had just entered the door, and explained, this is Uncle Ning, greet him. Tang Xiaonai immediately called out to Liu Hining gracefully, nice to meet you, Uncle Ning. My name is Xiaonai. A child would always feel shy when meeting a stranger, but after getting along with her for a while, her little nature had returned. This was the first time Liu Hining had interacted with such a young child. Unlike Mu Shiyi, his family had a niece. Tang Xiaonai had combed 2 princess little braids on her head, her jet black hair hanging down to her waist. At such a young age, she could already see her stunning appearance. 2 big, shiny, black eyes were embedded on his small, fair, and small face. His facial features were as delicate as a doll's. Anyone who saw him would fall in love with him within a second. When Liu Hining saw it, he couldn't help but exclaim in admiration, Xiaohan, your daughter is so beautiful, just like a little princess in a fairy tale. Jig Xiaohan was indescribably happy and satisfied. He extended his hand and lovingly caressed his daughter's little head, proudly saying, of course. Why don't you see whose genes it is? But I don't feel that your daughter is that similar to you. Your son is more like you instead. Liu Hining immediately laughed. Jig Xiaohan's mind also quickly flashed across that stubborn and proud little face. He frowned slightly and replied, it does look all right, but its temper isn't too good. Mummy is very nice, as long as daddy is nice to her. Tang Xiaonai immediately retorted on the side in a small voice. Even though the little fellow was young, it knew to speak up for the mummy. Liu Hining and Mu Shiyi looked at each other, wearing smiles that had a deeper meaning to them. C-114. Jig Xiaohan's handsome face slightly swelled up. Damn it, why are these 2 fellows looking at me like that? Xiaonai, you've grown up. What kind of boyfriend do you want to find? Mu Shiyi would often joke with his niece, so he felt that Tang Xiaonai would definitely answer him. Mu Shiyi immediately said with a smile, don't be so conservative. Don't look at how young I am, I know a lot, don't you think so? Xiaonai, you sure have good eyes. Uncle Ning must give you a present one day. Liu Hining said in high spirits. Thank you, Uncle Ning. Excuse me, Uncle Ning, do you have a girlfriend? Tang Xiaonai had already gotten to know these 2 kind uncles, so she was naturally not so restrained. Furthermore, she felt that Uncle Ning was really good looking. Hearing this topic, Jig Xiaohan's handsome face stiffened. He immediately stared at his daughter in disbelief. He actually asked such a mature question. Liu Hining also instantly received Jig Xiaohan's murderous gaze, which scared him so much that he trembled for a moment, and then he had to answer the little fellow's question. I don't have a girlfriend yet, but I'm single right now. Enduring the incomparably heavy pressure, Liu Hining replied in a low voice. Then can I be your girlfriend? Tang Xiaonai giggled, like a little fool. This time, Liu Hining felt that his life was in danger. If he agreed, Xiao Han would kill him on the spot. Mu Shiyi stared at him with jealousy. Why did he have to like Liu Ohining? He was clearly the most amiable person there. Xiao Nei, you're still so young, and yet you dare to have a boyfriend. Aren't you afraid of being scolded by your father? Since Liu Ohining could not agree to it and did not dare to, he could only ask the little fellow's reason. As Tang Xiao Nei seriously ate her ice cream, she replied dumbly, because it would be such a pity if such a good-looking uncle like you was snatched away by someone else. Therefore, I want to make an appointment. The three men were immediately stunned by her words. The thing that Tang Xiao Nei liked was that Tang Yu had frequently shopped on the internet before, and she liked to snatch those items that would instantly kill the price. At that time, she had indeed frequently said that those things she liked should be bought as soon as possible, but she didn't expect that the little guy would use them like this. Xiao Han's handsome face had already darkened by more than half. He asked his daughter in a low voice, "Did your mummy really tell you this?" Tang Xiao Nei nodded. "That's right, Daddy. Can I let Uncle Ning be my boyfriend? I really like him." "No, when you grow up, Father will find you something more handsome and richer." Xiao Han rejected him flatly. There were still some that were even more handsome for Tang Xiao Nei, so she immediately smiled and said, "All right, then I'll wait for Father to find me something even better in the future." Hearing that, Liu Ohining instantly had a feeling of falling out of love. Children's words indeed. Just a moment ago, I said that I liked him the most, but I didn't expect that I would immediately like better stuff. While they were chatting, many delicious dishes had already been served on the table. Xiao Han looked at his daughter's bowl with a lot of ice cream. He was a little worried that if she ate too much, it would be bad for her stomach. "Xiao Nei, can Daddy have a bite of your ice cream?" Xiao Han suddenly thought of an idea and decided to eat all of her daughter's ice cream in one bite. "All right. Let's have a bite." Tang Xiao Nei didn't sense his further ill intentions and immediately pushed the bowl in front of him. Without saying a word, Xiao Han directly swallowed all of the ice cream into his mouth. Following that, he turned to see his daughter's reaction. The other two also felt that Xiao Han was doing something bad as they stared at the little fellow's reaction. Tang Xiao Nei first propped herself up with a pair of big eyes, showing a look of disbelief. "Daddy actually ate all her ice cream? How can this be?" It was agreed that he would only eat a small mouthful. "My heart is so tired, so sad." Tang Xiao Nei immediately started to cry without any warning. "Daddy is a bad guy. Daddy has finished eating all my ice cream." The three men burst into laughter when they saw the little fellow start crying instantly. Tang Xiao Nei became even more angry and cried even louder. Xiao Han Ganjin hugged her and comforted her. "All right, stop crying, we're going to eat. Look, all the dishes are already on the table." Daddy lied. The little guy was still sobbing. "Because your ice cream is too delicious. I accidentally ate it all. Next time, I'll buy it for you, okay?" Tang Xiao Nei didn't intentionally eat everything when she arrived at Father's place. It was just that since it was too tasty, he might as well forgive him first. "This is what you said, and you still want to buy it for me?" The little guy had been coaxed. The three men started to eat. Xiao Han placed his daughter's favorite vegetables and dishes without chili into her small bowl. Tang Xiao Nei's point of having a meal was not bad. At the very least, she did not need an adult to feed him. Mu Shiyi and Liu Ohining were both very shocked to see the change that had occurred to Xiao Han. He used to be really aloof, whether it was talking or doing things. He always gave people a cold feeling. But now, who could be more masculine than him? For a man to suddenly become so gentle and capable in taking care of children, it was indeed an inconceivable thing. "Why are you all looking at me like that?" After Xiao Han gave his daughter another piece of meat, he raised his head and met their strange gazes. Mu Shiyi and Liu Ohining quickly looked at each other and laughed. "It's nothing. I just felt it." "You have changed." See 115. The whole world is hiding things from her. Yes, it's changed. Xiao Han could not be denied, and said indifferently, "I also feel that I have changed, and am no longer the same as I used to be." After dinner, Jik Xiao Han carried his daughter and prepared to return home. At this time, at the dining table in the house, Tang Yuyu was still sternly questioning her son. Tang Xiaorui felt that he was really pitiful. His dad had gone out to eat and only brought Xiao Nei, the idiot, to leave him behind. Listening to his son sighing and sighing, Tang Yuyu frowned. The little fellow normally ate a full bowl, but after eating for half a day today, it had only eaten half a bowl. Son, what's wrong? Tang Yuyu reached out and touched his little head. The little guy glanced at her and sighed. Where did father take Xiao Nei the idiot? Did they eat something good? Tang Yuyu could tell that the little fellow was thinking of going out to eat with his father. This little thing. Little Rui. If you tell me what happened to your little sister at school today, I'll tell your father what we went to eat. Tang Yuyu also became smarter. He knew to use conditions to exchange with his son. Tang Xiaorui was depressed just now, but when he heard Mummy's words, he immediately sat up straight and firmly shook his head. Mummy, don't ask me anymore. I really don't know. You little liar, are you lying to Mummy? Xiao Nei is your sister and you two are at the same table. Do you not know what happened to her? Tang Yuyu really wanted to beat this brat up. When did her little mouth become so tight? Tang Xiaorui knew that he could not win against Mummy, so he lowered his head. I promised, if not said, Mummy had let me be a trustworthy person since I was young. I can do it now. Tang Yuyu. Was she being taught a lesson? Fine, if you won't tell me, where is your school bag? Tang Yuyu put down her chopsticks and quickly walked into the living room. Tang Xiaorui jumped up in shock. With a shake of his short leg, he followed Mummy. Mummy, why are you looking for my school bag? Teacher has not assigned any homework today. Tang Yuyu had already seen the two little fellows' bags being thrown at a corner of the sofa. She quickly walked over, picked up a school bag, and opened it. He found a notebook with the daily records of the two teachers' numbers written on it. Tang Yuyu took out his mobile phone from his pocket and called the number. When Tang Xiaorui saw Mummy's actions, he covered her mouth. Soon, a gentle female voice answered the phone. Tang Yuyu asked politely, Teacher Wang, right? I am Tang Xiao Nei's mummy. May I ask, what happened to Xiao Nei today? When Xiao Nei was fighting with her classmates over the toys, she bit the little child's finger. This matter, Xiao Nei's father should have already settled it. After Tang Yuyu finished listening, he expressed his gratitude and hung up the phone. He turned around and glared at his son. Tang Xiaorui looked at her guiltily, then quickly lowered his head. Mummy, don't blame me. Are you going to listen to him like that? Tang Yuyu was about to collapse. When did this brat listen to his father's words? Tang Xiaorui curled his lips. I didn't listen to him. I wanted to protect my sister. Tang Yuyu was stunned again. Why did I hit her? You used to hit her little hand when she bit someone. Tang Xiaorui immediately pulled it out. Tang Yuyu sighed. I'm sorry. My previous teachings to all of you were too fierce. But you shouldn't hide it from the mummy. If you bite someone, you must apologize to them. When Xiao Nei comes back, mummy can teach her a lesson, but don't hit her little hands. Stupid Xiao Nei is most afraid of pain. Even a needle can cause her to cry for half a day. Tang Xiaorui was truly afraid of her sister getting beaten up, which was why she kept it a secret. Tang Yuyu obviously knew his daughter's personality. She was stubborn and weak, more afraid of pain. All right, I will be communicating with your father about this. But you must promise Mummy that you will tell him about everything that will happen in the school in the future. Okay? If you don't say it, Mummy will be worried. Tang Yuyu caressed her son's face, patiently teaching him. Tang Xiaorui nodded her head, indicating that he remembered it. Go eat your food, don't waste it. Tang Yuyu pushed his small body towards the dining hall. Tang Xiaorui was finally relieved in his heart. He thought that Mummy would be very angry, but he didn't expect that Mummy actually didn't scold him. Actually, it was also because of what Jik Xiao Han had just said. When he left, that caused Tang Yuyu to suddenly realize that if he did not participate in the life of the children in school, he would lose the right to speak. Her son was worried that his sister would be beaten up, so he kept it to himself. This showed that her brother was a very good man, and she had a sense of responsibility. She gradually realized that she was pampering her sister. At around 9, Tang Xiaorui helped his son wash up, and then his son went to the toy room to play by himself. Tang Yuyu returned to her room to continue working. Suddenly, she heard the sound of a car, so she put down her drawing board and hurried out of the bedroom door. When he went downstairs, he saw Jik Xiao Han carrying Tang Xiaonei in. The little fellow was already asleep in his arms. It was rare for Jik Xiao Han to see Tang Yuyu take the initiative to walk over and talk to him. I already know about Xiaonei at school. Why didn't you tell me? Tang Yuyu was still a little angry. As for why she was angry, she did not know either, but she felt that since the two little fellows had turned their backs on this man, it made her feel very disappointed. Jik Xiao Han lowered his head to look at his daughter who was soundly asleep. Put the child on the bed first. We'll talk in private. C-116. Don't be tempted by me, woman. Give her to me. Tang Yuyu walked over, wanting to take his daughter. Jik Xiao Han did not reject her, and gently exchanged his daughter with her. Tang Yuyu looked at his daughter's small body, sighed, and then covered her with a thin blanket, before turning and leaving the room. As soon as he opened the door, he saw a man leaning lazily against a wall with his head tilted upwards. His tall figure made the corridor even more crowded. Tang Yuyu turned and walked to the balcony, and followed with heavy steps. This woman was definitely going to quarrel with him again, because he had concealed the matter of his daughter at school. As soon as he walked out of the balcony, the woman's gentle voice rang out, "I admit, you are a good father. I also know that you love every single detail of the children, and I've noticed it as well. A few days ago, my mood was indeed extreme, and the anger I felt towards you was also because I was scared." After hearing what she said, Jik Xiao Han's gaze instantly became serious as he stared unfathomably at the woman's delicate back. "Did you figure it out?" "Except me?" Jik Xiao Han's thin lips slightly curled up as a faint sense of joy flashed past his eyes. To tell the truth, he had thought that this woman was going to quarrel with him, and then cause their relationship to become even more tense. To think that she would agree to raise a child with him was a good start. Tang Yuyu turned around, and with a slight frown, "Don't misunderstand, I only agreed to raise the child with you, and didn't accept anything else from you." "Then can we get along in the future?" Only himself knew the deep meaning behind these words. Tang Yuyu straightened her long hair, turned her head, and stared at the horizon in the distance. Her voice was still calm as she said, "I will no longer intentionally find trouble with you, as long as you don't do anything too excessive. We can live peacefully." "What do you mean by going too far? Can you be more specific?" Jik Xiao Han's thin lips rose, and he couldn't help but take 2 steps closer to her side. Tang Yuyu turned around and looked at him warily. "Other than the affairs of the children, one must never take an inch from anything, like last time where you treated me. To me, you've overdone it." Tang Yuyu did want to bring up the matter of him forcefully kissing her last time, but when the words were about to reach his mouth, he couldn't say it out loud. "Which time?" Jik Xiao Han pretended not to understand and asked curiously. Tang Yuyu's snow-white face was inexplicably flushed red. She gritted her teeth and bit her lower lip. "With regards to the last time you forcefully kissed me, I hope that you won't be like this ever again." A dim look flashed across Jik Xiao Han's eyes and his tone became indifferent as well. "Don't worry, if you hadn't kicked me again and again that day, I wouldn't have done that to you." "You're still talking about me? You were the one who picked me up first. If you didn't trap me by the railings and were less narcissistic, how would I have been able to hit you?" When he mentioned that incident, Tang Yuyu felt that he was the victim. Jik Xiao Han stared at her for a few seconds, and sneered, "All right, maybe I was too conceited, thinking that all the women would be interested in me. Since the moment I met you, I realized I have not reached the stage where everyone loves each other. Also, try your best not to appear in my office in the future. As the boss of the company, I believe you can make these decisions." Tang Yuyu had suffered a lot today in the office. Everyone suspected that she was the one who took the initiative to pounce on him, causing her to look as if she was scheming. Jik Xiao Han's expression became even darker. "All right. I can promise you that I will keep my presence in your office as little as possible. About sending your child to school in the future, if I have time, I'll pick them up in the afternoon." Tang Yuyu lowered his head and thought for a while. When he raised his head, His eyes were no longer cold. "How did you figure it out? Is it because of what I said to you today?" Jik Xiao Han laughed out loud this time. Tang Yu raised his head and looked at him smiling, his heartbeat suddenly speeding up a little. "You're right. Since the children are still so young, I can't just let them go. Although I feel that you can arrange everything well, I am, after all, their mother. The care I give them is also essential," Tang Yu said calmly. Jik Xiao Han did not expect this woman to have a reasonable side to her. Looking at the look in her eyes as she spoke, he suddenly realized that when this woman mentioned children, her expression actually had a beauty that could move one's heart. Strange, how could he have such a feeling? However, this woman clearly didn't have any makeup, nor did she have any lipstick, and she was even wearing such a conservative, rustic pajamas. Had his sense of beauty changed so much? Damn it, would he be led astray by this woman? In the past, he would never have spared a glance for a pure and innocent woman like her. Tang Yu raised her head and met the man's dark and gloomy eyes. She was a little embarrassed and annoyed. "What are you looking at?" Jik Xiao Han's gaze just now was fixated on that towering place of hers, and what he recalled in his mind was the scene of when he accidentally saw her clothes that day. "It's nothing." After being caught red-handed, Jik Xiao Han immediately looked away and said indifferently, "Rest assured, I am a person who is always on guard against women. With your looks, I really do not like you, so don't think that I would do anything to you either." C-117. "That won't happen, you can rest assured. Your face is the same as your son's. I'm already sick of it." Tang Yu also told him with absolute certainty. Jik Xiao Han's entire body froze. He stared at her in disbelief, so tired of looking at him this quickly. "Let me be clear with you. Actually, I've liked someone before. In my heart, I've always treated him well." In order to show that he was indeed not moved by his beauty, Tang Yu directly moved out of the room. Tang Yu didn't expect him to bring up such a shameful topic. Her small face was flushed red as she said in embarrassment and anger, "What nonsense are you spouting? If you hadn't destroyed me, I wouldn't be living my current life." Looking at her angry expression and hearing her words, Jik Xiao Han was secretly happy in his heart. Was it her first time that he wanted her 5 years ago? If that was really the case, then he was in a slightly better mood. "What kind of life is it now?" "You're not satisfied?" Jik Xiao Han raised his eyebrow. Tang Yu was stunned again. She simply did not want to speak. "You have 2 lovely children now. They bring you more happiness than any happiness, don't they?" Jik Xiao Han answered for her. Tang Yu could not deny that his words were what she was currently thinking in her heart. "I'm not talking to you anymore. I still have work to do." Tang Yu felt that he had said all that he needed to say, and continuing the conversation was just some rubbish. When Jik Xiao Han saw that she was about to turn around and leave, he didn't know which part of his body went into chaos. He mysteriously reached out and grabbed her slender arm. "I hope you can promise me that you won't take your child to see your first love." Tang Yu looked at the big palm that was tightly grabbing onto her arm. The temperature of his palm was extremely hot, and through her clothes, it directly burned into her arm, causing her to feel uncomfortable. "Don't worry, I don't want to expose my child's secret. Let me go quickly." Tang Yu was a little annoyed as she shook her hand, shaking off the man's big palm. Jik Xiao Han saw that she had regained his cold and unapproachable temperament. His pair of beautiful eyebrows were knitted together into a rope. The Tang family was some sort of family. He had already investigated Tang Zhu before, and only knew that Tang Zhu had a younger sister that was a different mother. At that time, he did not know who Tang Zhu's sister was, nor did he know what she looked like. Now, looking at it, although Tang Yu was in an incomplete family, she still retained her bottom line and pride. Tang Zhu was immediately angered by Tang Yu, and when she returned home, she flew into a rage. Her mother, Meng Xiwan, quickly walked down from the stairs. Looking at her daughter's face filled with anger, she was shocked. "Zhu, what happened? Why was he so angry when he came back? Who pissed you off?" Meng Xiwan immediately asked with concern. Tang Zhu covered her face and cried, "Mom, that bitch Tang Yu, she told Jik Xiao Han about what happened 5 years ago. Now, Jik Xiao Han is extremely angry at me, saying that I tricked him, that he has withdrawn all of my endorsements, and still doesn't know what he will do to me next. Mom, I'm done for. I'm almost done for. Meng Xiaohan knew everything about his daughter, and was also aware of Jig Xiaohan's important role in his daughter's entertainment. Now that she suddenly heard her daughter's despairing words, her face turned white. Did Tang Yuyu, that chatty woman, really report you? The moment Meng Xiaohan heard that it was Tang Yuyu who destroyed her daughter's business, she immediately became angry, and wished that she could scrape the damned girl 1,000 times. Mom, I personally heard her say that she was taking revenge on me. This is too vicious. She deliberately waited for me to succeed and then wanted me to fiercely fall off. Tang Zhu was also very unreconciled and was extremely angry. Meng Xiaohan's face was also deathly pale. She was at a loss of what to do for the moment. Seeing her daughter's dejected look, she couldn't think of any way to help her. She must be because of that piece of jade. If I find the jade she wants, it's useless. It's too late. I really regret not taking this matter seriously. Tang Zhu was so regretful that she was about to die. If she had given Tang Yuyu the jade and money back then, Tang Yuyu would have already brought the money and left the country a long time ago. What jade? My daughter. Can't you go beg Jig Xiaohan? At least you followed him for so long. It's impossible for him to not remember his old friendship at all. Meng Xiaohan hurriedly tried to think of a way for her. Hearing his mother's words, Tang Zhu's face froze, and after that, she cried in despair, Mom, there's one thing I lied to you about. Nothing happened between Jig Xiaohan and I. Everyone is saying that I'm his girlfriend, but in reality, he hasn't even touched my fingers. What? Meng Xiaohan was heavily shocked. Until that moment, she had still been dreaming of her daughter marrying Jig Xiaohan, and she had become the richest mother-in-law in history. But now, her daughter's words had shattered all her beautiful dreams. Jig Xiaohan has never touched you? That's impossible. You've been spreading rumors with him for almost 5 years, and in that time, he hasn't fallen for you? But you clearly said before that you and him already. Meng Xiaohan still did not believe this fact. She felt that her daughter was so beautiful and charming, and Jig Xiaohan was a mature man. It was impossible for him to not show respect to his daughter. Mom, when I said that, There are many people outside who say that we are related, and I hope it's like that as well. If Jig Xiaohan really did exist with me, I can definitely find him to reason with right now, but in reality, he is only giving me endless resources behind his back. For others to respect me, it's also because of his relationship with me. The more Tang Zhu thought about it, the more sad she felt, and the more she despaired. C-118. Daddy misses women. What should I do? Meng Xiaohan's entire body froze as she looked at her daughter, feeling flustered and helpless. Then, she comforted, Daughter, don't be sad. Even if we can't become celebrities, don't we still have a lot of money? There's no problem at all in living a good life. No, I don't want to live the life of an ordinary person. Mom, I don't want to. I can't do it without the applause. I can't do it without the support of my fans. I love the feeling of being supported by others. When Tang Zhu heard that she was to withdraw from the entertainment circle, she broke down and said her decision excitedly. Xiaonei, your father is on the way. Let your father send you to school. Your mummy will be rather busy in the morning. Suddenly, a deep and magnetic male voice came out before Tang Yuyu could speak. Tang Yuyu was startled, her clear eyes looking at the man sitting beside her son. The man, however, kept his head down and didn't look up as he applied the sauce to his son's bread. All right, Daddy will send me there, so I'll already be very busy. Tang Xiaonei said, while grinning, and in an instant, she had turned into a cute little girl again. It's fine, Daddy likes to send you two to school. Jig Xiaohan raised his eyes, and suddenly met with the lady's gaze. He smiled at Tang Yuyu somewhat amicably. Tang Yuyu panicked and immediately lowered his head, quickly drinking a mouthful of milk. FCK. What's the matter with this man? Why did it suddenly become so strange this morning? From what Xiaonei said, you took her out yesterday to apologize to that little friend. I never thought that you, the dignified CEO, would actually lower your head to me. When Tang Yuyu heard her daughter mention this matter, She was also slightly shocked. It was as if she had gained a new understanding of this man. "This is also a kind of education for your daughter? I'm afraid your daughter will become more tyrannical in the future if I don't know how to lower my head," Jixi Han said unhurriedly, but at the same time, he was left speechless with no words to refute. "Indeed, by doing so, you set a good example for your daughter. I hope that you will continue to work hard in the future." Tang Yu smirked twice. She was sure of this man's method, but she didn't want this man to feel excessively superior. Jixi Han raised his lips. "Of course, I have always been setting the best example for my children." Tang Yu only laughed without saying a word. This man was narcissistic again. After finishing their breakfast, Tang Yu gently kissed the two little fellows on the head. Just as he was about to leave, he turned his head and glanced at the man who was sitting beside his son. Jixi Han just so happened to be looking at her with interest. Seeing her look over, the man's expression became even more joyous. Tang Yu originally wanted to say a word of thanks, but after seeing how evil his smile was, and how he swallowed that sentence of thanks, she simply turned and left. Jixi Han's expression became slightly startled as he stared at the woman's cold and indifferent back. Could he have misunderstood something? She clearly wanted to say something to him just now. His daughter insisted on her sending him off, and he took the initiative to share her work. Shouldn't she say thank you to him? Sigh, even if he did something good, it would not be good. Jixi Han deeply understood the meaning of this sentence. However, when he thought about it again, he was instantly shocked. He actually wanted to make that woman feel grateful to him. What kind of mentality was this? Is he sick? Why did she care so much if she said thank you or something to him? Jixi Han hated the feeling now. It was as if he was no longer under his control, and could already easily be controlled by that woman. This was the first time. Before, he had always been able to calmly and rationally decide anything, even whether he was sad or happy. "Daddy, what are you daydreaming about?" "We have to go. We're going to be late." Tang Xiaorui turned his head and looked at his father with his big eyes for a long time. He thought that his father would notice him, but never thought that his father would stare at the cup of milk on the table, as if his soul had left his body. When Jixi Han heard his son's voice, he immediately woke up. Only now did he realize that he had actually thought about this matter to such an extent. "Daddy, what are you thinking?" "You're missing women." Tang Xiaorui saw that something was wrong with his father, and immediately narrowed his eyes, secretly confirming that his father's soul had been lured away by a certain woman. Jixi Han was shocked again as he turned around to look at his son, only to see him snorting in disdain. "Daddy is so embarrassed." Faced with his son's sudden accusation, Jixi Han did not know whether to laugh or cry. He pinched his son's face punitively. "You already know how to be embarrassed at such a young age. How could Daddy miss a woman?" "It's always women who miss me. Daddy is so narcissistic." Tang Xiaonai suddenly blurted out. Following that, her snow-white face blushed as she covered her mouth and laughed non-stop. Jixi Han was speechless, but his daughter had scolded him for being narcissistic. He liked hearing her scold him, but that woman scolded him for being narcissistic. No matter how he listened to it, he felt that it was extremely ear-piercing. C-119. "Let's go, don't be late." Jixi Han stood up and went over to grab his daughter from the child's chair. Holding one in one hand and holding one in the other, Jixi Han felt so happy that he was starting to feel dizzy. Then I am relieved," Tang Xiaonai said. While beaming, when Tang Yu heard the two words boyfriend, what flashed across his mind was the cold and handsome face, and she immediately shook her head. "He's still not a boyfriend, he's just a friend. His car just happens to be empty, so let me use it." "That must be a male friend." Liu Zai laughed, as if he understood everything. Only then did Tang Yu bashfully lower her head. "Yes, it's a man, but not the kind of relationship that my godmother would have." "All right, I understand. I won't ask any more." "Look at how embarrassed you are." Liu Zai was also an experienced person. Moreover, she did not want to interfere with Tang Yu making friends, because she had always felt that Tang Yu was sometimes a very calm and rational person, and would not casually make friends with bad friends. Around 10 p.m. Tang Yu was busy with her work, when suddenly, Liu Zai walked in quickly and directly walked towards her, wondering, "Come with me to the office." "Hurry, it's urgent." Tang Yu put down the work in his hands and quickly followed his mother into the office. He curiously asked, "Mother, what happened?" "There's a big client who wants to talk to you." "Hurry up and come with me," Liu Zai said as he took a few copies of the information. Tang Yu was extremely curious and blinked her eyes. "Mother, what kind of big client is that? Why would she want to find me by name? I am a newbie." "I'm curious too, but the people up there didn't say anything. They only said that they wanted to see you." "Let's go and take a look." Liu Zai did not know the background of the other party, but the person in charge of only idealism was there to receive him as if he was facing a great enemy. After calling Liu Zai over, he only told her one thing, that the other party was looking for Tang Yu, and that she should quickly bring the person over. When Liu Zai heard it, he was also extremely anxious. She truly felt that Tang Yu's life was tough. He finally managed to get a job. How could there be so many things? Tang Yu's brain tightened into a string. The so-called big shot. Could it be Jik Xiaohan again? If it really was him, then he would be too bored. Didn't he manage such a large company? Running over to her every day would ruin his noble image as the CEO. Tang Yu hurriedly followed his mother to a guest room, and the person in charge of the company, the lamb tongue, walked out anxiously. "Liu Zai, don't go in." The other party only said that they want to see Tang Yu alone. "Lamb tongue, who is the other party?" "You shouldn't be in any danger, right?" Liu Zai asked worriedly. Lamb tongue was angered to death by her words. "What danger can there be? Tang Yu, don't just stand there. Hurry up and go in, don't make me wait too long." Tang Yu nervously looked at his mother. He signaled her with his eyes, then took a deep breath, quickly walked into the reception room. As soon as she entered, she quickly scanned her surroundings. Suddenly, she saw a slender figure wearing casual clothes, leaning heavily on the sofa. Seeing Tang Yu coming in, the other party also raised his head. "You are Ji." When Tang Yu saw the pair of dark black eyes, he was shocked. He could hardly believe that the mysterious person Liu Zai was talking about was actually Ji. This super big star that was set on fire all over the world was currently sitting on the sofa in front of her, exuding a noble and elegant aura. "You are Tang Yu?" Ji's never thought that he would actually look like this upon seeing this woman. To be honest, among all the women he had contact with, there were very few who were as conservative and rustic as this woman, with a set of simple professional clothes, a pure face, and a head of long hair casually tied behind her head. From head to toe, not a single nameplate could be seen, nor did they have any kind of gold or silver ornament that could make her look. "Do you have any business with me?" After the initial shock, Tang Yu quickly calmed down. If she remembered correctly, this Ji was Jik Xiaohan's little brother. When Jik Xiaohan had found her, he had actually suspected that the two little fellows were his little brothers, and they had interrogated her coldly and forcefully. At that time, she had panicked and thought that the person who had slept with his 5 years ago was this world-renowned big star. Ji then looked at her body a few more times and frowned. "Actually, there is nothing important. I just want to discuss some cooperation with you." "Cooperation? What cooperation can I have with you?" After Tang Yu heard his words, he was even more shocked. However, from the tone of his voice, it did not contain the arrogant and conceited attitude that his brother had. It made sense. Someone with his identity would more or less have a sense of distance between them. Ji stared at her face for a while. Then, he took out a photo from his pocket. "These two children are yours, right?" When Tang Yu saw the little girl in the photo, she couldn't help but shudder when she saw the scene of the two little fellows being secretly photographed on the plane. She immediately raised her eyes and stared at the man. "What are you doing with my child's photo?" "Don't worry, I didn't take their pictures to hurt them." Ji could feel Tang Yu's nervous and uneasy emotions, and he immediately smiled. Tang Yu saw his signature smile. He had seen it before in all kinds of movies and TV shows, as well as in advertising in the Ocean newspaper. It was definitely a charming smile that would make all women scream. But at this moment, from her point of view, it was enough to shock her. "Then what do you want to do?" Tang Yu became even more anxious and flustered. C-120. Ji's eyes turned, and then, as if he had thought of something, he asked, Your child's father, does he look very similar to me? Tang Yuyu was startled. Then, she almost wanted to laugh out, but could only hold it in. Why do you ask? Tang Yuyu's heart slightly calmed down. Actually thinking about it, Ji didn't dare to do anything to her child. With Jixiao Han's protection, Ji definitely wouldn't be able to do anything. Ji continued to laugh blandly. I know you're surprised by my words. Are you excited? Wasn't this feeling of happiness too sudden? You just need to sit at home and wait for the money to come in, because you're lucky to have two such beautiful children, and I am the children's bowler. I've found them, and I'm willing to give them a chance to develop. Stop. Let's not talk about this topic anymore. I won't let my children become celebrities at such a young age. They aren't suitable, and I don't agree. I appreciate your good intentions. Tang Yuyu interrupted him and firmly rejected him. This time, was dumbfounded. He did not dare believe that this woman did not even think about it, and directly rejected his suggestion. Are you sure you don't want to think about it? This is an extremely rare opportunity. I'm not someone who any kind of child would fall for. Ji felt that this woman must be crazy since the chance he gave her was really good. How many people wanted to sign his company, but he did not agree, and now, even when he personally came to discuss cooperation, she actually rejected them without thinking. Tang Yuyu thought to himself, if your brother knew what you had said, he really would give you a punch. Of course, Tang Yuyu still did not mention Jixiao Han's name, because she did not want to arouse anyone's suspicions at the company. No, I'm sure. Tang Yuyu answered in an extremely calm and composed manner. Tang Yuyu, you are the stupidest woman I have ever seen. Ji was angry. How could he not be angry? Originally, he thought that everything would be a victory. Tang Yuyu would happily agree to this matter and be grateful to him for everything he did. But now, it seems that he had thought too much into it. Tang Yuyu was startled for a second. Following that, her tone became sarcastic. You cursed just because I did not agree to your request? I think the quality of your big star is only so-so. Tang Yuyu had a very good impression of Ji at the start, but he didn't expect that the moment she rejected his conditions, he would scold her for being stupid. Do you know how serious the consequences of offending me are? This was also the first time that someone suspected that there was something wrong with Ji's character. His handsome and devilish face instantly turned ugly, and his eyes revealed a sense of danger. I don't know. I'm not afraid either. Tang Yuyu crossed her arms in front of her chest, with an uncompromising attitude. It was true, she was not afraid. If Ji knew the truth, he would have felt that today's senseless quarrel was laughable. Ji's eyes widened as he stared at the fearless woman in front of him. Do you believe that I will make you lose your job? Ji did not often threaten others. He did not have his brother's imposing aura. He only had the label of an idol on him, and sometimes, he had a simple personality, so at that moment, he could only choose to use her work to threaten her. Tang Yuyu was startled, but after that, she could not help but laugh as she lowered her head. She only started laughing because she felt it was very funny, but in Ji's eyes, she was mocking his incompetence. What are you laughing at? Ji frowned. This woman was already enough. Did he really think that he would not dare to do anything to her? He had personally liked those two little fellows, and now that he was unable to sign the contract, Ji was extremely furious. Therefore, he had never liked people who lost their temper before. Tang Yuyu quickly regained her composure and said indifferently, I just felt that what you said just now was funny. You said you wanted me to lose this job. Fine, why don't you go and try it out? Tang Yuyu glanced at him, then lowered his head and laughed. Seeing that she was still smiling, Ji's handsome face immediately turned red. He turned around and opened the door. Lin Chanan, come in. Lin Chanan was the person in charge of only idealism. When he heard Ji's loud roar, he trembled in fear and anxiously ran over. Second young master, what orders do you have? Lin Chanan knew Ji's identity, so he often called him the second young master. Ji turned, stared at Tang Yuyu, and said unhappily, I want you to immediately fire this woman for me. Lin Chanan thought Ji had other orders, but he did not expect Ji to give him an order with a wave of his hand. Lin Chanan stared at Tang Yuyu and questioned her angrily, Tang Yuyu, What happened to you? How did you offend the second young master? Lin Chanan did not know about the relationship between Tang Yuyu and Jixiao Han, so he naturally felt that Tang Yuyu had neglected him, and immediately roared at her.